What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Kaspa in this video at the request of Thomas Keefe. Thomas, we're doing this one for you. You've been so patient, my friend. We're also going to talk about Kaspa versus Bitcoin, and probably not in the way that you guys are used to. When I say you guys, I mean anybody who's watching this video, because I know the Kaspa community is kind of a niche community. You guys have your YouTubers and people and sources of information that you go to that you frequent, right? I'm probably an outlier in that respect, but in that sense too, you might see some things that you don't see elsewhere. So I'm going to hopefully promote a chart on here that you haven't seen elsewhere, which is going to be the Kaspa versus Bitcoin chart, right? Not just comparing them side by side, but literally forming a chart that compares them and seeing what we can determine off of that. So. And I've actually looked at the Kaspa Bitcoin chart. It looks very similar to this chart, honestly. A little bit more bearish, relatively speaking, but basically overall has the same shape. But we'll get into that at the end of the video. Anyways, hit the like button, you guys. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. We're sitting at 16.5 cents, and I very much do believe we're prepped and ready to see new all-time highs. I think the next target area that we could expect would be somewhere around 22.5 cents to 28 cents, potentially even above 40 cents or 50 cents as well. I would say by the end of the year, if not early next year, right? Somewhere, who knows how long it takes, but Kaspa does like to move up pretty fast, respectively, like seeing how it moves in its history. So certainly I would expect we're at 16.5 cents now. I would expect that we see prices above not just 20 cents, but above 30 cents by the end of the year, and above 40 cents or 50 cents. That could happen. It might not happen, this move. It's hard to say. But if it does happen, I might see that at the very, very end of the year, if not going into the beginning of next year. Like this zone up here, it might be sometime in Q1. And I actually think that could be the all-time high. When I say the all-time high, I don't mean the same thing as like this is the all-time high right now. I mean like the cycle high. Like I don't think it goes higher than that. And I know that kind of disagrees with what a lot of the Kaspa community thinks. A lot of people think it's going between $5 and $50. I just disagree with that personally. I'm having a hard time seeing it really getting above 50 cents, let alone $1, let alone more than that. But time will tell. I can be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. But let's talk about Kaspa a little bit more, just relatively speaking, and then we'll talk about the BTC pair. So on the weekly RSI, at an area that you found support plenty of times, right? It would make sense to move up from here. You've definitely consolidated long enough. I don't mind where you're postured. Neutral, definitely neutral, but bullish overall. So I'm going to give you the go-ahead and say that you're going to go higher. Daily RSI, definitely neutral. Absolutely, it's neutral. But right now, looking more bullishly postured than bearishly postured. You have a bit of like this inverse head and shoulders look. I wouldn't call it that because you have this low over here. It would be perfect if like this shape was over here to the left and this wasn't here at all, this big wick. But nonetheless, it does look ready to move up. It does look bullish in nature. You could move down a little bit, I suppose. I don't know. Your 4-hour looks good enough. Your daily looks like it's ready to move up. So I think you do move up. High to low, relatively speaking, like over the coming days, over the coming weeks. Come on, man. If I can get this low, I would expect to move up to about 18.6 cents, 19.6 cents. That could be by the end of this month. If not, certainly sometime next month. And then by the end of the year, I think prices, above 20 cents, above 30 cents, maybe even above 40 or 50 cents could happen, but time will tell. All right, let's compare Kaspa to BTC. So you do Kaspa USD and then BTC USD, right? I think that's what you wanted me to do. We'll just do Bitcoin. We can do it on Coinbase because Kaspa hasn't existed that long, right? We don't need all that history. Kaspa's all-time history, you press enter. So this chart now, this price over here, this is how many Kaspas it's how many Bitcoins are in one Kaspa. This is Kaspa priced to Bitcoins, right? So like if you had this many Bitcoins, you have one Kaspa, if that makes sense, okay? Yeah. Or one Kaspa gets you this many Bitcoins. Okay, anyways, if we look at the chart, we zoom out, it looks pretty similar, doesn't it? Right? Very, very similar, very bullish. You look at the weekly time frame, you can see what I mean by it's a little bit more bearish. Instead of these, it's like the same exact consolidation phase, but instead of tilted up, it's tilted down. Rejecting the overbought zone here, getting to the 50 and below the 50. This isn't a good combination, I gotta say. So I do think, and this kind of adds up too with what I'm saying with Kaspa on its next phase up, potentially being the end of its cycle, right? its next phase up might be great, but Bitcoin's about to see a phase up too. That's pretty damn phenomenal. And Kaspa might not move up as much as Bitcoin, right? It's losing momentum. And I think it's been losing momentum. And if it loses momentum versus Bitcoin, that's a pretty big deal, especially in a bull cycle, right? And it looks to me like this definitely looks like it wants to move down. If you were to move up, you would have done so already, and you haven't. And the weekly RSI just looks like it wants to move down. Daily RSI looks weak. Absolutely. Somewhat neutral overall, but you've shown your weakness here with this recent move down, getting below these lows here. I would expect that you move lower. I would expect, so I think Kaspa is going to move up, and I think Bitcoin's going to move up over the coming weeks, over the coming months. I think what this chart's telling us is that if it's going to lose value versus Bitcoin and they're both moving up, that just means Kaspa is going to move up less than Bitcoin is by the end of this year. I wonder if we can do something with that to make sense out of that, right? Let's pull up TradingView here real quick and see. Okay, so we got Bitcoin. I'm expecting by the end of the year, Bitcoin could be anywhere from like 120,000. I think it will break 120K, or 100K by the end of this year, you guys. 103,000 to 173,000. Somewhere, 120 was like right in the middle, so that's why I was saying that. But yes, by the end of the year, absolutely, I expect that we could be somewhere in that zone. So from here, from its current price, go to December, it's like a minimum of a 58% gain, right? Kaspa, by the end of the year, that doesn't sound right, right? Because 58%, no, okay, that does get you to new all-time highs. There you go. So that takes us right in that range, right? 58%, okay, at a minimum, and that makes sense. That's kind of at the lower, a little bit above the lower range, but still right around 26 cents. Okay, yeah, I could see that happening. If Bitcoin only goes here by the end of the year, then Kaspa, you know, something like that. But less, Kaspa would actually grow less. So maybe not. Maybe then what we would see is Bitcoin grow more. Maybe it's at like 90 or 120K, 97%. And then what would the Kaspa versus BTC chart? Hold on. I've got a bunch of different things going through my head right now, but I promise it'll all make sense. CAS USD versus BTC USD on Coinbase, and then on crypto and launch chart. What was I doing? Right, 90% here, 97%. That's why we were trying to get the how low it's going to go. Okay. So if it goes lower from here by the end of the year, where would I expect it to go? Probably around its 382, okay? Probably a little bit below its 382 even. Let's just say something like 9%. 9% loss versus Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin moves up 97%, Kaspa would essentially move up about 90%. I could see that happening, yeah. That makes sense to me. Right, 97%, if not 97%, maybe it moves up more than that, maybe it moves up less than that, whatever, but you know, maybe this moves up more, maybe this moves up less, maybe this isn't exact, who knows, but it lines up, generally speaking, in the right areas. I would think that this does decrease, again, alluding to the idea that both Kaspa versus US dollar increases and Bitcoin increases versus US dollar, but Kaspa just moves up at a slower pace than Bitcoin. That's kind of what this chart is telling me, and that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. I hope that last part was easy enough to follow, or at least I hope I brought it back. I don't know. The 4 hour does look like it wants to move up a little bit, but again, just a little bit, right? If it moves up from here, I wouldn't think anything marvelous, right? Maybe you get up to here, lower high, and then down. So maybe you gain ground versus Bitcoin over the next day or so, but over the weeks, over the months, I think you're going to lose value versus Bitcoin. So even if Kaspa, even if I'm wrong, guys, and Kaspa does see $5, $50, well, probably not. It wouldn't make sense if it saw those prices and this went down. This chart to me looks even more so. I'm more convinced about this chart losing value and going down than I am convinced about this thing finding its high on its next move up, right? And I'm pretty convinced that on its next move it's going to find its cycle high, Kaspa, right? But as convinced as I am about this, I'm more convinced with the Kaspa BTC chart that you are going to lose value versus Bitcoin from here on out. I don't see how you could achieve much higher prices unless Bitcoin goes crazy, man. But even then, it's like at this point, if this chart is saying that it's going to lose value versus Bitcoin, why hold Kaspa when you can hold Bitcoin at that point? But I don't know. Food for thought, just my opinion. I can be wrong. I've been wrong before. I can be right. I've been right before. If you liked the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more. If you hated the video, leave a scathing review below and tell me what I did that was so terrible. Why did I hurt your feelings? And what can I do to be better and not worse? Anyways, take care, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.